So I would definitely say that this is pretty surprising, but you guys probably remember Joe Rogan caught a lot of flack for some comments he made where he basically said that young, healthy people, whatever that means, should not get vaccinated. Keep in mind, there is no vaccine for anybody below 16 right now. But he was saying if you're 21 years old, you eat right, you're active, don't get it. I don't know how many 21-year-olds are even healthy like that anyways. But Dr. Fauci responded. So not only did Joe Rogan's comments get a ton of backlash everywhere, this article that is reporting on Dr. Fauci responding to Rogan is currently the #1 most popular article on the Hill for today. So I'm going to play for you Dr. Fauci's response.
Real quickly, I want to ask you, popular podcast host Joe Rogan, you may have heard about this, made comments about young people getting vaccinated. It's getting a lot of buzz. He said, if you're like 21 years old and you say to me, should I get vaccinated? I say no. If you're a healthy person and you're exercising all the time and you're young and you're eating well, I don't think you need to worry about this. Saying young, healthy people shouldn't get vaccinated. Just quickly, your response?
Well, that's incorrect, Savannah. And the reason why is that you're talking about yourself in a vacuum then. You're worried about yourself getting infected and likelihood that you're not going to get any symptoms. But you can get infected and will get infected if you put yourself at risk. And even if you don't have any symptoms, you're propagating the outbreak because it is likely that you, even if you have no symptoms, that you may inadvertently and innocently then infect someone else who might infect someone who really could have a problem with a severe outcome. Yeah. So if you want to only worry about yourself and not society, then that's okay. But if you're saying to yourself, even if I get infected, I could do damage to somebody else, even if I have no symptoms at all. And that's the reason why you've got to be careful and get vaccinated.
Yeah, so you say young, healthy people should get vaccinated.
Absolutely.
Now, I know that probably Joe Rogan's fans, especially the ones who are the COVIDiots, as well as just people who are morons on the COVID issue, are not going to like Dr. Fauci, so I'm not really sure what this opinion is going to do for them. But obviously, Fauci is obviously very qualified, and yes, what he just said there is true. You can't think about it in terms of just yourself. This is a pandemic. Another thing he didn't even mention actually was the ability for the virus to then mutate. The more prevalence that the virus has because less people got the vaccine, if people continue to get the virus, it can actually mutate into something that's far worse. And so that's what we saw in the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu didn't really go crazy until it was like the second or third wave, because just like every other virus, it was only killing, like the old people who are really vulnerable. But then what ended up happening was it had mutated into something that was actually killing people who were young and middle-aged and healthy. And so that could happen with coronavirus if the virus isn't stopped in its tracks. It could continue to mutate into something much more dangerous. But also, right now is the time where everybody should get vaccinated, because let's say a young person catches the virus and then goes home and gives it to somebody in their household. And remember, everyone's not vaccinated right now. Nowhere near everyone is vaccinated right now. And on top of that, even after everyone's vaccinated, there are people who just can't take the vaccine due to allergy issues and being immunocompromised. So either way, that's why there's a flu drive every year to push people to get vaccinated for the flu, because you want to reach herd immunity. And the idea of herd immunity is there's such a high percentage of the populace that's vaccinated that it's virtually impossible for big breakouts or really these kinds of bad situations where there's a lot of people catching the disease. Basically, you're almost quashing the disease in its entirety. Because everybody is vaccinated against it, it lowers transmission power, obviously makes it so that it can't really infect anybody. And we're already seeing some breakthrough cases where there's some strains that are breaking through the vaccine. And so the longer that you keep people with the virus, it's going to continue to mutate. There will be more breakthroughs. And there will be more strains of the virus, and it can mutate into something a lot worse. So Joe Rogan's comments are just completely incorrect. And also, I have to say, the underlying message that Joe Rogan gives off, first of all, some of the preconceived notions I think were just completely wrong. But one of the things that he says, is, do I want to inject my child with something? As if there's any downsides to taking the vaccine, or as if there's some kind of ulterior motive going on from the producers of the vaccine, something that it could be, some type of situation where the government or something is setting up a situation where they're not following rules, or they're doing this to inject a brain chip into your brain, or something ridiculous like that. Essentially is what Joe Rogan is doing, and I very heavily dislike that, because I just think it's wrong. I just think it's wrong. For a vaccine, I mean, you should just think about it as, what's the downside? You're getting protection from a virus. What's the downside? But even that is actually a very selfish view. Again, for a virus, you really, especially one that's this contagious, obviously you have to combat it at a literally global level, not even just a nation, but a global level. And so that means everybody has to take these vaccines. And so obviously, Dr. Fauci here is obviously correct in what it is that he's saying. And I'm definitely interested to see if Joe Rogan is going to get any sort of backlash from Spotify, because these were some pretty serious comments. Like these kinds of comments are not ones to be taken lightly, because you're talking about a pandemic in which over 500,000 people in the United States have died. And so if you're spreading misinformation that can basically lead to the demise of, of people, hundreds of people, thousands of people, it definitely is problematic. And we know that Joe Rogan has been completely terrible when it has come to coronavirus altogether this entire time. And I'm not sure whether he was largely faking his previous personality, and this kind of bizarre Texas Joe, the Texas Libertarian Joe, was all what he really was, and the $100 million that he got from Spotify allowed him to do that. I don't really know. To me, at this point, I would say that Joe Rogan is a bit of an enigma. It's not really exactly clear who he is or what he is, because he seems to be such a chameleon that I really don't know what his ideology is, what kind of person he is, any of that stuff, because he's made such a radical shift at this point that I really could not tell you what exactly Joe Rogan is. I mean, obviously, he's lost complete stock, in my opinion. He's lost all credibility, in my opinion. I've made that very, very clear. He also doesn't really have any lefties on his podcast anymore anyways, so it's just basically a right-wing echo chamber shit show in Texas with the stupid garbage studio. I don't know what to tell you other than that, but the fact that Dr. Fauci responded to Joe Rogan's comments means a couple of things. It means the comments were taken very seriously. Also means that Joe Rogan obviously has a lot of power and is taken seriously if Dr. Fauci is responding to his comments. But I do think that Joe Rogan needs to be at least more careful about what it is that he's saying. But the thing is, I think he's just being honest in what he's saying. And that's kind of the issue here. It's just his thoughts are very stupid. But this is very, very serious stuff. Dr. Fauci is obviously correct. Joe Rogan is not. Young people should get vaccinated, because we have to stop the virus from spreading, stop it from mutating, stop the virus from getting to people who can't handle it. Just because you don't have symptoms doesn't mean that you can't pass it on to somebody. Not only that, you can pass it on to a ton of people. In fact, that may even be likely. So keep that in mind, okay? This is a reason why young people should get vaccinated.